Think about the last building you saw going up, maybe. Or the furniture in your own living room. Even just a simple wooden picture frame.
Hmm.
Behind so many everyday things, there's this huge, absolutely critical industry, timber processing.
Absolutely. It's really foundational
Yeah.
for global infrastructure, housing, just countless products we use.
And today we're taking a deep dive into a specific kind of core part of that industry, the global circular sawmill market.
Right.
And our insights, they come straight from the latest findings by cognitive market research. They looked specifically at mills using that circular saw technology.
And what's fascinating, I think, is just the sheer scale and the consistent growth this report highlights.
Yeah.
It really shows is a market vital for meeting, ongoing global demand.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Our mission here is really to pull back the curtain on this market, understand its size, its trajectory, the forces pushing it forward, and crucially, how that picture shifts depending on where you are in the world. It's basically getting a shortcut to being well-informed on a sector that's key for getting wood products into our lives.
And the numbers right off the bat give you a clear sense of that vitality, the scale.
They really do. So this report tells us the market generated roughly $3.1 billion in revenue globally. That was back in 2021.
And the report projects a steady climb from there. By 2025, it's expected to hit $3.8 billion.
And looking even further out, they think it'll reach $5.6 billion by 2033.
Wow.
That's consistent, solid growth over the next decade, wouldn't you say?
Definitely. Which translates to a steady 5% compound annual growth rate, CAGR, over that whole forecast period.
Right, CAGR.
And for a relatively mature industry segment like timber processing, that's actually a pretty healthy pace of expansion.
So just quickly, that CAGR, the compound annual growth rate, it's like the average yearly growth smoothed out over the period, a good way to see the long-term trend.
Exactly. Yeah, it averages out the bumps, gives you that overall trajectory.
Got it. So what's driving that steady 5% expansion? The report must point to some key factors, right?
It does. The primary drivers identified are, well, first, increasing global demand for timber. That's a big one.
Okay, makes sense.
Then, continued technological modernization happening within the sawmilling operations themselves.
Uh-huh.
And interestingly, the rise of small-scale sawmilling businesses. The report particularly notes this in emerging markets.
Those seem pretty significant. Why are these factors pushing growth now, specifically? Is there something changing?
Well, global population growth and urbanization, they just keep fueling demand for construction, for housing, which naturally needs huge amounts of timber.
Right. The underlying demand is always there.
But it's more than just raw demand. The report really highlights technological advancements, things like more efficient circular saws, automated systems.
Ah, the modernization piece.
Exactly. It lets mills increase their yield, process the timber faster, cut down on waste. This makes operations more profitable, more scalable. And that point about the rise of small-scale businesses, it's likely enabled by more accessible tech, maybe portable machinery.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it means processing can happen closer to the timber sources or closer to local markets, meeting demand in areas where, maybe a huge mill wouldn't be feasible.
So technology isn't just for the big players, it's enabling sort of distributed, localized growth, too.
That seems to be the suggestion, yeah. It's filtering down.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we have these global drivers, demand, tech, smaller businesses. Where are we seeing the most impact geographically? How does this break down by region?
Right, let's dig into the regions. North America is obviously a major part of this market globally.
It certainly is. The report puts the North American market at, $1.27 billion in 2021?
That's right.
And projected to grow substantially, reaching over $2 billion by 2033. That's a solid 4.2% CAGR for the region overall.
And within North America, the United States is clearly the largest market.
By far, yeah. Over $1 billion in revenue just in the U.S. in 2021, and growing steadily.
Around 3.9% CAGR for the U.S.
And Canada contributes significantly too. Starts smaller, but actually shows a slightly faster growth rate than the U.S., doesn't it?
It does, 4.8% CAGR for Canada,
Yeah.
starting from about $179 million in 2021.
But here's where it gets really interesting. When you look at the rates of growth within the region.
You mean Mexico?
Exactly.
Yeah.
While the U.S. and Canada are the big established markets, Mexico is showing the highest regional growth rate, according to this report.
A striking 6.3% CAGR.
Wow. Okay, it started from a smaller base, around $75 million in 2021, but that higher growth rate means it's expanding quite rapidly within North America. What might that suggest?
What often points to increasing domestic demand,
Yeah.
driven by construction or manufacturing,
Mhm.
or maybe growing capacity for export. It suggests a dynamic shift happening there relative to its neighbors.
Interesting. Okay, let's shift gears. Across the Atlantic to Europe, how does that region compare in scale and growth?
Europe's another really significant segment globally. It generated $931.6 million back in 2021, and it's expected to reach over $1.6 billion by 2033. That's with a regional CGR of 4.6%. So actually slightly faster overall growth predicted in North America.
Okay, 4.6%. And the report highlights key countries there. The UK, Germany, France, all substantial markets, steady growth around, what, 3?
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
Germany, France, all substantial markets, steady growth around, what, 3.7 to 4%?
That's right. UK around $163 million in 2021. Germany about $189 million. France $143.5 million. All projected to grow steadily.
But what stands out within Europe, similar to the Mexico story, are countries showing more accelerated growth, right? Outpacing those bigger markets.
Exactly. You're probably thinking of places like Italy, Russia, and Spain.
Yeah, those jumped out at me.
Their projected CAGRs are notably higher. They're ranging between 4.4% and 6.3%.
Okay.
The report shows Italy expected to grow from around $100 million to $170 million. Russia from about $84 million to nearly $150 million. And Spain from around $60 million to over $124 million by 2033.
And Spain actually has the highest growth rate among that group.
It does, 6.3%, matching Mexico's rate, actually.
So Spain is really climbing the ranks in terms of growth within Europe.
Interesting. And the report mentions growth across the rest of Europe, too, even smaller places like Luxembourg.
Luxembourg starting smaller, around $16.8 million, growing to near $26 million. And the rest of Europe category actually has a pretty decent CAGR itself, 5.4%.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture for Europe, it seems like while the traditional markets remain crucial, there are these pockets showing much stronger dynamism.
Precisely. It could suggest regional investment shifts or changing demand patterns, maybe. It's not uniform growth.
Right. Now let's talk about the region the report identifies as having the strongest growth overall.
Ah, yes, Asia Pacific. And the numbers here are quite striking.
Wow, they really jump out. From $689.3 million in 2021, projected to hit nearly $1.5 billion by 2033.
That's it, with a very strong 6.5% CAGR for the region. That's significantly higher than the global average we talked about.
Clearly the engine room for growth. Who leads there? China leads the region in terms of current market size. Over $250 million in 2021, and a strong CAGR itself at 6.9%.
Yeah.
Japan is also a major player, projected to reach over $250 million by 2033, though with a slightly slower growth rate of 5.2%.
But the real standout in Asia for growth, according to the report, that's India.
Absolutely. India is expected to see the fastest growth across the entire Asian region,
What kind of numbers?
moving from $73 million in 2021 to over $180 million by 2033. That's an impressive 7.9% CAGR.
7.9%. That rate is faster than any other major country highlighted in the report, isn't it?
It is much higher than the global average of 5%.
Does the report give any clues why India specifically is projected to grow so much faster?
Well, it doesn't give super granular reasons for each country, but the general drivers mentioned for Asia-Pacific are things like rapid urbanization, huge infrastructure development, a growing middle class.
Right, fueling enormous demand.
Exactly. And India's stage of development likely means it's experiencing those forces particularly intensely right now. Plus, the report also notes strong growth in South Korea, Australia, and Southeast Asia.
So the whole region is really a powerhouse.
It reinforces that narrative, yes.
Yeah.
Southeast Asia, for instance, growing at 6.6% CAGR.
Got it. Okay, moving south now. Let's touch on Latin America.
Latin America is another region showing solid expansion, definitely contributing to that global 5% CAGR. Brazil is highlighted as the largest market there.
Right, starting around $62 million in 2021 and projected to more than double to over $127 million by 2033. That's a healthy 6.2% CAGR.
Yes, very solid. And the report also gives figures for other key countries. Argentina, Colombia, Peru, all showing positive growth trends as well. Argentina projected to reach nearly $50 million, Colombia over $40 million.
And Chile is mentioned too, with its own specific CAGR of 4.7%.
It shows consistent expansion across multiple countries in the region. It just underscores that increasing demand there as well.
Okay, and finally, let's look at the Middle East and Africa. The report frames this region as having emerging opportunities.
It does. And while starting from smaller bases compared to, say, Asia or North America, some countries are showing significant growth potential according to the data.
Like Egypt, for instance. The report highlights Egypt's growth from around $7.5 million in 2021
Right.
to over $15 million by 2033. That's a strong 6.5% CAGR, same as the Asia-Pacific average.
It really raises an important question about the potential in regions like Egypt and Turkey, too, which is also expected to show solid growth.
What were Turkey's numbers?
Moving from over $20 million to nearly $40 million by 2033, with a 5.6% CAGR. And the rest of the Middle East also shows positive trends, around 5.3% growth.
It really underscores that even in regions maybe not traditionally seen as huge timber processing markets, demand and opportunity are clearly increasing.
Definitely.
And, throughout all these numbers, all these regions, it's crucial to remember why this matters, beyond just market figures. These aren't just abstract statistics, are they? They represent the actual wood that goes into the homes we live in, the furniture we use every day, the buildings shaping our communities.
Exactly.
The circular sawmill market is this fundamental engine tied directly to meeting those essential, really tangible needs globally.
Precisely. Understanding this market, it's understanding a critical part of the global supply chain. It impacts everything from huge construction projects right down to, the chair you might be sitting on right now.
So what does this all mean then? When we pull back and look at the big picture painted by this cognitive market research source?
I think the key takeaways from this report are pretty clear. First, it's a robust global market. It isn't just holding steady, it's experiencing strong, consistent growth.
That projected 5% CGR through 2033.
Right. Second, the expansion is particularly dynamic and fast-paced in Asia-Pacific and also Latin America.
While North America and Europe continue to be these large, important markets with steady, if slightly slower, performance overall.
Exactly. And third, those drivers we talk about, increasing global timber demand, the ongoing tech advancements in sawmilling, and that interesting rise of smaller, maybe more localized businesses.
Those seem to be the fundamental forces that will likely keep shaping this landscape.
And the report explicitly notes that ongoing investments in sawmill technology and also the development and adoption of portable machinery. These are key factors that will continue to determine the industry's trajectory right through 2033.
Right. Which kind of leaves us with a final thought to mull over, doesn't it? Something for you, the listener, to consider as we wrap up. Given how important technology and especially that portable machinery are flagged in this source for shaping the future, how might continued innovation in those specific areas impact everything? From, say, the cost of constructing a building to maybe even the sustainability of forestry practices in the years to come.
That's something definitely worth considering. As this fundamental market continues its pretty robust growth worldwide. You've just taken a deep dive into the global circular sawmill market, based on the source material you provided. Okay, so let's dive in. Today we're unpacking the circular sawmill market.
Right. And we're drawing heavily from that recent analysis by Cognitive Market Research.
Exactly. Our goal is really to get a handle on the key drivers, the challenges, and what's trending in this pretty vital sector.
It's fundamental, really, how we get from raw timber to usable...
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.
Fundamental, really, how we get from raw timber to usable materials for building, for furniture, all sorts.
It might seem niche, but yeah, it's a critical step. Understanding these machines helps understand where our materials actually come from.
Well, what's quite striking from the analysis is how timber demand isn't just growing. It's the type of demand that's shifting and really influencing the machinery itself.
How so?
Like the report points to more global need for processed timber, especially for things needing very standard uniform sizes. Think prefabricated housing, that sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
And circular sawmills, they're efficient at churning out those consistent dimensions quickly. So they're becoming, real workhorses for the bigger operations focused on that kind of output.
Speed and consistency. Got it. And the report also mentioned technology as a huge driver too, didn't it? I think I saw something about automation.
Oh, definitely. The analysis goes into specifics, laser-guided cutting, computerized controls, automated feeding systems.
So not just small tweaks.
No, these are things that significantly boost productivity, improve efficiency for the larger companies, getting more usable wood from each log and cutting labor costs through automation. That's a major focus.
Right. But it isn't only about the huge industrial mills, is it? The report seemed to shine a light on smaller scale stuff too.
It does, yeah, and that's quite interesting. In places like, say, Southeast Asia or Latin America, the analysis shows portable circular sawmills really empowering smaller forestry businesses, even local entrepreneurs.
How does that work?
Well, they can process timber right there locally, near where it's harvested, cuts down transport costs massively, lets them tap straight into local markets.
Ah, okay, so it's a different kind of demand driver. More grassroots, maybe?
Exactly. It's scalable in a different way compared to those big industrial setups.
So you've got this dynamic, big global demand needing automation and consistency, but also growth in these localized portable units. What about the hurdles, the bottlenecks? What did the report flag there?
Yeah, that brings us to some practical realities. A big one is maintenance, especially those blades.
I can imagine.
At industrial scale, they need constant attention sharpening, realigning, lubrication. That means downtime and, well, significant ongoing costs.
Downtime's always the killer.
Yeah.
Did the report touch on limitations based on the wood itself? Like, can they handle everything?
Good question. It highlights that no, they're not always the perfect tool for every job. They're great for standard logs, medium sizes,
But not.
but they can struggle with really dense hardwoods or very large diameter logs. They just don't have the cutting depth or the kerf efficiency that's the wood lost as sawdust compared to something like a bandsaw mill.
So bandsaws are better for the big stuff or hardwoods?
Yeah, often yes. So the type of timber available in a region really dictates which machine makes more sense. Suitability is key.
Yeah, environmental regulations, I'm guessing that's a factor too.
Absolutely, a big one. The report mentions tightening rules globally, things like stricter checks on where the wood comes from, sustainable logging certifications.
That must add complexity.
It does. It can limit access to raw timber sometimes, and it definitely puts pressure on mills to prove they're using responsible practices all the way down their supply chain.
Okay, so challenges. High maintenance, wood suitability limits, and regulatory hurdles. But things change. What about future trends? What did the analysis see coming?
Well, there's a definite trend towards more mobility, driven partly by that growth in smaller local operations we mentioned.
The portable ones.
Exactly. Mobile and portable units are getting more sophisticated, more popular, processing closer to the source. It could even reduce the environmental impact of hauling raw logs long distances.
Processing at source. Yeah, sounds efficient. Any other tech trends besides the basic automation?
That's where things like IoT, Internet of Things, and smart monitoring are starting to play a role.
Okay.
The report talks about integrating sensors. Think tracking blade sharpness, motor health, even predicting when maintenance is needed before something breaks down.
Predictive maintenance for sawmills. Interesting.
Yeah, it shifts operations to be more proactive, more efficient, helps equipment last longer, too.
Okay, one last trend the report mentioned. Something about what they're cutting. It's not just standard logs anymore.
Right. There's this growing use for processing engineered wood products and also reclaimed timber.
With sustainability and salvaged materials being popular.
Precisely. So circular sawmills are being adapted. They can accurately cut things like laminated beams or unique old pieces of wood, other specialty items. Their precision, especially in smaller batches, works well for these niche, often higher value uses.
So wrapping this up, what does all this mean for you listening? I think understanding the circular sawmill market really gives a window into this complex balance, doesn't it?
It does. Between rising global demand for materials, rapid tech changes like automation and IoT, and then these crucial environmental factors and local needs playing a part.
It shows how even seemingly basic industries are constantly adapting.
Yeah, it's a great snapshot of how machinery, even something that looks simple, fits into this dynamic global system, turning trees into, well, the stuff we use every single day.
And maybe here's something to chew on. How might this rise of portable sawmills and more localized timber processing actually change things for you in the future? Could it affect access to certain woods or maybe shift building practices in different places in ways we haven't quite seen yet? Something to think about.
This audio was created with Podcastle.ai.